so I think queen to a7 is okay. But I'm completely losing. Engine says +7 now. Folks, welcome back to the Bobby Bo Show. Here's the moves it starts with. I've got an extra special episode of the Bobby Bo Show today for you because both games start with the same moves. Here's the opening. It's the Exchange Caro Khan, and this first game is something special. And you know I don't just say that, guys, so make sure you stay focused because after d4, knight f6, knight f3, I play bishop to g4, pinning the knight to the queen, and after they play h3, attacking my bishop, I should either take this knight or go back and maintain the pin, but this time I decide to go to f5. And after bishop to b5 check, I could block with the knight here, but this bishop is usually pretty annoying. White's light squared bishop is usually a pretty strong piece because my king ends up on a light square when I castle. So I'm just going to move the bishop back to d7 here and try to trade off the bishops. And they trade bishops, and I put my knight on d7, and now my knight backs up the other knight, and it can also come out to b6 to defend my pawn, and then come up the board maybe. And after they castle, now I want to finish development, get my bishop out. But first, I want to prevent them from playing bishop to f5 because people like to play bishop to f5 and pin the knight to the queen. So first I play h6, prevent the bishop from coming to here. And now they just continue their development with rook to e1. And now I still have to finish my development, just have to get this bishop out, and I could play e6 and then get the bishop out. But I decide to fettuccine this game and I play g6, and apparently a mistake here. Because if they play something like queen to e2, I could be in trouble. Now if I play bishop to g7 and try to castle, I'm going to lose this pawn, right? So I want to push this pawn to e6. But now knight to e5. Okay, and it looks like I can just play bishop to g7 and then castle, right? But look at what happens. Bishop to g7, blunder. And now the brilliant knight captures f7. And if I take here, because they're forking my queen and my rook, then they have queen captures e6. So this is losing. So this could be a problem if they play queen to e2 right here. So I should probably play e6. But instead they play bishop to f4, and that's also a good move, and I could still be in trouble. And this is a pretty common tactic here. They have the bishop on the diagonal here, attacking the c7 square, and they want to bring their knight to b5, and then fork your king and your rook. And you have to watch out for this. So I play a6 to defend the square here, but once again they find the best continuation, and they play knight to e5. And I still haven't castled or developed my bishop. They only need to develop their rook still. Their king is very safe. They're controlling more space. They have a knight in the middle of the board defended by a pawn here. And if I capture it, they'll take back with the bishop, and that's a very strong bishop. So a bit of a positional problem here for me. But now I play bishop to g7, and I'm getting ready to castle. And now they go for queen to f3. And apparently queen to e2 here is just the strongest, lining up on the square here, pinning the pawn to the king. But queen to f3 now, hitting the pawn twice with the knight and the queen. And I'm defending with the knight right now. So I play knight to b6, adding another defender. And after rook a to d1, now they're fully developed. Both rooks in the middle, queen out, knight in the middle, bishops out, knights out. They're targeting this square. A great opening for white, but they're not winning yet, still an even game. And after I castle, now I'm almost done developing. Just have to move my rooks over, play e6, but now they play queen to e3, and they're lined up queen and bishop on my h6 pawn, only defended by my bishop, so I have to decide what to do here. I could push it, I could play g5, attacking the bishop, or I could play king to h7, defending it with the bishop and the king, and I decide to go for g5. Forcing the bishop to choose this diagonal, and after bishop to h2, now I have to decide what to do. And it's just e6 here, the most logical move, but I'm not sure what I was thinking. I made a mistake. And maybe what I was thinking is that this knight is very strong. I want to dislodge it. So if I play something like knight to c4, attacking the queen and the pawn, forcing them to trade knight for knight, and then I take back with my pawn, and then I have 3 pawns on the outside here, good pawn chain. But let's see. Now I lose the e7 pawn. Maybe I missed this. Not sure. But okay, it's just a pawn. How bad could it be? I'll play queen to b6, and now I'm attacking their pawn. Still hitting the pawn in the middle. About to open up my bishop here and hit it with the bishop. Maybe play something like rook to e8. So what do? Well, they have to defend this pawn, I guess. So they decide to go queen to a3. And now I really should play rook to d8. To finish developing, also to hit this pawn, and more importantly, to block knight to d5. But instead I play knight to h5, and I guess I just want to open up this bishop on the diagonal here. But now knight to d5! And I'm realizing the problem here, because my queen's under attack, and knight to e7 would be a check, so I have to move my queen, but I also have to not get forked on the next move. So I have a few options here, and c6 is not an option because that would get forked. The queen's on this diagonal, so I can't go here. I could go to d8, and that would attack the knight and line up with the pawn that I'm attacking. But I decide to go for queen to a7, and this might look like a weird move, but I'm still attacking the pawn here, and I'm also lined up with the king and the f2 pawn. So I'm looking for maybe some sort of tactic to emerge later. So I think queen to a7 is okay, but I'm completely losing. Engine says +7 now, even though they're up 1 pawn. So big trouble for me, right? And after knight to e7 check, I have to decide king to h8 or king to h7. And if I go king to h7, then I'm just on this diagonal and I might get checked by the queen. So I figure I'll just go king to h8. And now what should they do? Probably just push this pawn. But instead they play knight to f5, also a good move. Still +7, and that defends the pawn. Also attacks my bishop and my pawn. And I don't want to trade bishop for knight right now. I'm trying to save my bishop and also prevent a move like rook to e7, putting a rook on the 7th rank. So I play bishop to f6. But now this pawn is not defended. So they play knight captures h6, and it just keeps getting worse. But now bishop captures d4, and I got the pawn. So we traded pawns, and now I'm lined up on the f2 square, and I could check the king and take the rook if it was my turn. So they want to stop that. They play queen to f3 now, and that's a good move. Now they're attacking my knight. They're also double attacking the f7 square here, and they defended against the threat. So I need to protect my knight here, and I want to stop them from taking here. So I play knight to f6. But now my bishop is trapped after they play c3. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Basically no hope this game. But let's play it out. And I did think about just playing something like bishop takes or bishop takes, just to try to get something out of it, you know? But then I thought of something else, and I played rook to e8. And why did I play this? Hopefully you start to see some sort of tactic possible. But let's see how it plays out now. Rook captures e8, I take back. Okay, we traded rooks, and now they take my bishop. What do you do now? Queen captures d4. Oh no, my queen. But it's so obvious. They're not going to fall for this. Because if they take my queen, then it's checkmate, right? And they're 1500, and 1500 players can see that, so they can't take my queen. Instead, they play knight captures f7, check. And I'm losing even more material now. And after king to g7, now they play knight captures g5. And there goes another pawn. Now I'm down +5 material, and the engine says +8. Okay, I either have to resign or at least try to win this game now. And they're not going to take my queen here, but this pawn's getting close to the end of the board here. Maybe I can take on b2 and then 3 moves away from a promotion, right? Maybe there's something going on here and my rook coming down here. Something could happen here. And also, now that I took on b2, I'm defending the b7 square, which the queen could take and then check my king, but not anymore. But after queen to g3, it just keeps getting worse and worse. Now the knight's going to move somewhere like knight to e6, double checking my king with the queen and the knight, and then I have to move my king. It looks like I'm either about to get checkmated or they're about to take my pieces or something. Let's just see what happens here. I decided to push the pawn. Might as well just go for it, right? But after knight to e4 check, oh my gosh, now I'm in check. They're attacking the pawn twice. I'm going to lose this pawn. So king to f7. And now they could just take this pawn right now with either piece. But first they go for queen to c7 check. And that doesn't really change anything. They're still attacking the pawn twice. Now I play rook to e7, attacking the queen, so the queen has to take on c3. And there goes all my hopes of winning, right? The passed pawn was the only thing I had going for me, and it's pretty clear that their next move is just going to be queen captures f6 check with the knight and the queen attacking my king, and I'm about to get checkmated, so I have to trade queens here, because it's forced checkmate. If I don't trade queens, let's say I play something like queen to e2, well now just queen captures f6 is mate in 5. Let's check it out. Okay, now queen captures f6. You have to go king e8, queen h8 check, king f7, queen h7 check, king f8, rook to d8 checkmate. So it's checkmate in 5, and the game is over. But if it was my turn, I would take the rook, and it'd be checkmate, back rank checkmate in 1. So would you take the knight on f6 and checkmate in 5? Or should you worry about checkmate in 1 here? And they're worried about checkmate. They play queen to b3 check, checking my king and defending the rook at the same time. So now they can't get back rank checkmated, and they're up +5 material. And I have to move my king here. I play king to f8, and oh no, my knight. And after they take my knight, now they're up 8 material. Game over. Call an ambulance, but not for me. And everybody sees it. The brilliant queen e1 check, sacrificing your queen. And now you're down 17 material, but after rook captures e1, checkmate on the back rank, and you win. And that might be my greatest gambit of all time. And because everyone's been smashing the like button so much, we have just enough time for a bonus game. And here's the moves it starts with, and it is the same opening as before, d4, and now we have the Caro-Kann exchange variation. Knight to f6, bishop d3, bishop g4, pinning the knight to the queen again. But what's different this time? Well, before they played bishop to b5 check, and then I brought my bishop back and we traded bishops, and I put my knight on d7. But now their bishop is on d3. And they castle, and now after knight to c6, I'm attacking the pawn, which is defended by the knight, but it's not defended by the knight because the knight is pinned to the queen, and they don't realize that. They play rook to e1, and it's just a free pawn. And that's what the Caro-Kann's all about, is winning the d4 pawn. And once you do that, you win the game. And what would you do if you're white now? Well, hopefully you play knight to d2, backing up your other knight. because if you play something like bishop to f4, finishing your development, now I can just take your knight with my bishop, attacking your queen. You can't take back with your queen because my knight's defending it, so you have to take back with your pawn. Now your pawns are doubled up, and your king is wide open. And let's see how that plays out. Just like the last game, I have a problem not playing e6 for some reason. Instead, I play knight to h5, attacking the bishop, and I figure I'll just play something like f6 and then e5, build a strong center, and we have no problems over here, because if they move the pawn forward to attack my knight, then I just play g6, defending the knight. But if they play bishop to e5, they're fine. And they do. And it's almost an even game now. Attacking my knight now, knight to c6, attacking the bishop, moving the knight back. Still a slightly better position for me. And if they play f4, they'll be just fine. Attacking my knight, defending the bishop, and it'll be an equal position if they play f4. But instead they play bishop to b5 now, pinning my knight to the king. But I'm not worried about it. I just play f6, attacking the bishop. And I would love to trade this bishop off. But instead now they try to play f4, attacking my knight. But it doesn't work anymore. Now I can play g6, and your bishop is still under attack. My knight's defended. And there's no problems. You have to move your bishop back. And if they don't want to move their bishop back, they could even play something like c4 here. And if I take their bishop, now they play c captures d5, attacking my knight that's pinned to the king. And after I play a6, they move the bishop back to e2, breaking the pin on my knight. Now I play knight to d4, moving to safety. Now they just play bishop captures h5, and I take back. And now my pawns are very weak. They can play queen captures h5, checking my king. And after my king goes to d7, can they take on e5? No, knight to f3, check, forking your queen and your king. So they have to move the king first, king to h1. And now I'm still winning if I play something like bishop to g7 or queen to b6. I can't play knight to c2, forking the rooks, because they have queen f5 check. So this is how they could have played it if they didn't want to move the bishop, which still probably would have been losing, but would have been a little bit more complicated. But instead they play knight to c3, trying to finish development. I don't know, maybe they forgot that this bishop is under attack, but I didn't, I just took it. Maybe they think they have some compensation after rook to e5, doubled up on my pawn here, tripled up on the pawn. Knight is pinned to the king, cannot attack the rook. What do I do now? Well, now my knight on h5 can play knight captures f4. And this defends the d5 square. And also sets up the attack on the king here. Maybe the queen comes over and we check the king and checkmate. We'll see. And they don't have a g-pawn, so they can't make my knight move. But queen to d4 attacks my knight, and my knight is still pinned. So what can I do now? Well, I can just defend the knight with bishop to h6. And I'm almost done developing, and I can castle next. And I was looking at something like rook takes on e7 here, and maybe they take my rook with their queen. But it doesn't work. And instead they play rook to e1, doubled up their rooks on my king now, but I can just castle, and that breaks the pin on my knight. Now the knight is no longer pinned, and it automatically forks the queen and the rook. So they have to take it with their bishop, and after I take back, now the d5 pawn is defended, but they can play rook captures e7, and I lose a pawn, and the rook is on the 7th rank, and maybe they're getting ready to checkmate, but my bishop's defending. So this is a powerful rook, but not powerful enough. What would you do now? Try to threaten checkmate, and the move that threatens checkmate the hardest is queen to c8. Getting ready for queen to g4, and you're about to checkmate. So they want to stop that. They play rook to e3, getting ready to block the king, but does it matter? Try to visualize what's going to happen if I play queen to g4 and they play rook to g3, queen to g4 check. And now look what happens if the rook blocks. Can you see it now? Now your queen's under attack, but the crushing knight to h3 check. And they can't take your knight because the rook is pinned to the king, so they have to move the king, and then you take their queen. The queen's undefended. And they probably saw that too. So instead of playing rook to g3, they played king to f1, but they're still losing. Queen to g2 check, and the forced move, king to e1, queen to g1 check, and they're forced to go king to d2. And now you play king to f2 check, and if they block with the rook, then you take. So king goes back, and now what do? We're trying to checkmate the king or take their pieces. So how do we get all of our pieces into the game? And currently this knight is blocking the rook and the bishop here, so let's move this knight. Let's play knight to g2, and now we're attacking the rook with 3 pieces, and the rook can also come down. And when this rook moves, rook to e2, attacking my queen now, but now I just take their queen. And their only move is to block with the rook, and then it's checkmate. Good game. And that's 2 wins with the same opening. So smash like if you like the Caro-Kann and you want to see more Caro-Kann games. Hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Bobby Bo Show. Thanks for watching. Have an excellent rest of your day. Goodbye.